I hope you all see this, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Please stop me if you have any questions. Let's talk about fluid, electrolytes, and acid-base homeostasis. You got to know about body fluids. Some of this is AP1, but it's important. It's a good review. It's a good review. The majority of your body is water. Anywhere between 55% and 65% of your body basically is body fluid or water with electrolytes in it. And these fluids are present in two main compartments, either inside the cell, intracellular, or outside the cell, extracellular. But the majority of body fluids is inside your cells. So the intracellular fluid, which is cytoplasm or cytosol, mostly contains 2/3 of your body fluids. And the extracellular fluid, which is basically the fluid that is in between cells, otherwise known as interstitial fluid, which is 80% of the extracellular compartment, and 20%, which is in your blood plasma. You'll learn that in the blood system. So, this is a chart that shows you that 60% of your body is fluid. Anywhere between 55% and 60% of your body is fluid. 2/3 of that is in the intracellular fluid or in your cytoplasm of your cells. 1/3 is either in between your cells or in your blood plasma, okay? So that is the compartments. Obviously, in between cells, there is a plasma membrane which separates the intracellular fluid from the extracellular fluid. And in this case, the extracellular fluid is the interstitial fluid, the fluid that is in between cells. The blood vessel walls divide the interstitial fluid from the blood plasma. You know that from the blood system. And the capillary walls are thin enough to allow the exchange of water and solutes between the blood plasma and the interstitial fluid. You know, you learned about osmosis, facilitated diffusion, and such in AP1, okay, in AP1. So there are many things that are in these mechanisms that separates these compartments. How do these compartments exchange water and solutes? Well, it's done by 4 mechanisms: filtration, reabsorption, diffusion, and osmosis. Whenever you see the word osmosis, it's always water. It's the diffusion of water in and out of the cell. Basically, when you see diffusion, it's gases and some small electrolytes. But when you say the word diffusion, it really refers to oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. And you know from the kidneys and you know from the GI tract that there involves filtration and reabsorption. So the balance of inorganic compounds is closely related to fluid balance. Where fluid goes, electrolytes go. You gain water, you gain food by ingestion. When it comes to water, you not only gain it by putting it in your body, you make it. You make it in the electron transport chain because those extra hydrogen atoms attach to oxygen, and that's known as metabolic water. We talked about that when we talked about glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain. Your body loses water by 4 mechanisms, 4 systems of waste. You urinate, you perspire, you exhale, and you defecate. The 4 systems that get rid of waste: the urinary system, the skin, your lungs, and your GI tract. I'm going to stop here and I'm going to ask some questions. Sam, you with us? Turn your mic on, Sam. Maddie.
Hello, sorry.
That's okay, no problem, no problem. I just want to make sure I wasn't talking to the computer. You're there, right?
Yeah, I am.
Good, answer this question. Out of the 4 systems, urinary, skin, lungs, respiratory system, and digestive system, which gets rid of the most waste?
Skin.
Wrong.
Oh, urinary.
Thank you. Yes, the urinary system.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Okay, let's pick on Carly. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good. Carly, which system gets rid of waste the fastest?
The respiratory system?
Yes, because it blows out carbon dioxide. You are correct. Okay, let's pick on Sarah.
Yes.
Which system gets rid of the least amount of water?
Is it feces?
Yes, it's the GI system. You are correct. You're correct. Okay? So those are the waste systems. Those are the waste systems, okay? And there's a balance. There's water gain and water loss. Okay? Water gain. The majority of your water that you gain is the water that you drink. It doesn't have to be pure water. It can be Coca-Cola, ginger ale, a beer. It's still ingested liquids. Okay, so the majority of water gain is through the liquids that you ingest. You also get water from the foods that you eat, okay? And you get water that you make in the electron transport chain, and that electron transport chain gives you the top thing right there, which is metabolic water. And no, you don't have to know the exact amount. That's not important. Just know that the most water that you gain is from liquids. The second most is from food. And the third most is water that you make in the electron transport chain. And that's called metabolic water. And here you can see that the kidneys, the urinary system, gets rid of the most water. The skin is second, the lungs are third, and the GI tract is fourth. Those are all the questions that I asked already. Okay? So It is the level of oxygen that you take in to determine the amount of metabolic water that you form in the electron transport chain. When water loss is greater than water gain, you become dehydrated. And when you become dehydrated, you become thirsty. And that's governed by your brain. It's governed by the hypothalamus. There's a center in the hypothalamus that is the thirst center. This is why you drink fluid, because of the thirst center in your hypothalamus. When you're dehydrated, you drink water. Okay? So there is a thirst response. Increased blood osmolarity. This is a common word that is used in medicine that not many people understand. When you have an increased blood osmolarity, that means that there are more particles in your blood than there is water. So an increase of blood osmolarity means you have too many electrolytes, too many proteins, not enough water, not enough water. So when you have an increased blood osmolarity, you have a decreased blood volume because the water in your blood is being decreased. This stimulates the osmoreceptors in your hypothalamus. The decreased blood volume decreases the activity in the atria of your heart, You have a decreased blood pressure. You have a dry mouth. You have decreased activities of the baroreceptors in your carotid sinus and your aorta. You have a low blood pressure. When you have a low blood volume and a low blood pressure, the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system is activated. Oh, and by the way, there will be more questions on that system again in exam number 3. When you have an increased release of renin from the kidneys, it stimulates the formation of angiotensin II. All of these functions stimulate the thirst center in the hypothalamus. You increase your thirst. You increase your water intake. And the increase in water intake in your body decreases blood osmolarity. Now you have more fluid. It increases your blood volume. It increases your blood pressure. And it relieves your dry mouth. And this is why you drink fluids. Elimination. How do we get rid of water? Well, the majority of elimination of water is through your kidneys. When you get rid of urine, you get rid of 2 main solutes. And those 2 solutes are in big, bold, black letters. Salt. You get rid of sodium and you get rid of chloride. Where salt goes, water goes. So the amount of urinary salt is the main factor in determining the elimination of fluids. It maintains your body fluid volume. And as we said in the urinary lecture, there are 3 major hormones that control renal sodium and chloride, and they all begin with A. angiotensin II, aldosterone, and ADH. All three of these are concerned with salt and chloride. There is another hormone that begins with the letter A. It is known as antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. ADH is produced by the hypothalamus. It is stored in the posterior pituitary. It regulates water loss. So angiotensin II, aldosterone, and ANP regulate salt, sodium, and chloride, and ADH, the fourth A hormone, regulates water loss. Okay? Let me ask some more questions. Emma, are you here? Mary Kate.
Yeah, Professor.
Okay, good. Mary Kate, tell me of these four hormones, which one is the only one that will lower your blood pressure?
Is it aldosterone?
Wrong. Lower your blood pressure.
Is it angiotensin II?
Wrong.
Is it ADH?
Yeah, no, it's wrong. There you go. You got three wrong answers, and you only have one more left, and that's ANP. ANP is the only hormone in your body that will lower your blood pressure. Atrial natriuretic peptide. It's one of the only hormones. There's only like 3 or 4, which are meaningless hormones. But this hormone is a hormone that will lower your blood pressure. It will lower your blood pressure. It causes vasodilatation. And when you vasodilate your arteries, you drop your blood pressure. Okay? So no angiotensin II, no aldosterone, no ANP, and no ADH. Now, let me ask Hannah, are you here? Lindsay?
Hi, I'm here.
Good. You know, I just realized the interesting thing about these virtual classes, if you don't want to answer, you just don't answer. Lindsay,
Yes.
now that you volunteered, tell me, where does angiotensin II come from?
I don't know.
Someone help her.
What's the question again, Professor?
Where does
Is it
angiotensin
the
II?
liver?
Well, okay, let me go over it again. I'll do this one more time. You're going to be asked questions on the RAS system.
It's
When
either the
you're,
liver or the kidney, right?
I'm sorry?
It's either the liver or the kidney, right?
Well, let me go over it for you all. Okay, so here we go again. This is a very important system. It's one of the most important systems in your body. When your blood pressure drops, when your blood volume is low, when your blood osmolarity is high, for whatever reason, the cells in the juxtaglomerular apparatus are stimulated in the kidney. These juxtaglomerular cells produce the enzyme hormone renin. Renin is now in your bloodstream. When it flows in your bloodstream, it attacks angiotensinogen, a protein produced by the liver. It converts angiotensinogen, so somebody's microphone is on, should be turned off. When the renin attacks angiotensinogen, a protein polypeptide made in the liver, it converts angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1. When angiotensin 1 in the bloodstream goes into the lungs, there is an enzyme called ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. That enzyme converts angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2 is a powerful blood pressure riser. Angiotensin 2 constricts arteries to raise your blood pressure. Angiotensin 2 stimulates the adrenal cortex to produce the hormone aldosterone. When aldosterone is produced, as you can see from this slide, it controls the reabsorption of sodium and chloride. And when you increase sodium and chloride, you excrete potassium. Those functions will elevate your blood pressure. That is the RAS system. That is the RAS system. Okay? Everybody got that?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure because you're going to see it again. Remember, your exam number 3 has 100 questions. I could ask 10 questions on the RAS system. I'm not going to, but I could. All right? I want to make sure you understand all of this, all of this. So
I have a question.
Go.
So angiotensin is in the liver, and then angiotensin 1 is in the lungs. Is angiotensin 2 still in the lungs or in the bloodstream?
It's in the bloodstream. You said something that was wrong. What did you say from the beginning?
The liver?
Okay, I want to make sure you understand. The protein angiotensinogen is in the liver.
Okay.
It is acted upon by renin to produce angiotensin 1.
Okay.
That is in the bloodstream. Angiotensin 1, when it gets into the lungs, is acted upon by ACE, converting it to angiotensin 2. So everything's in the bloodstream. It's all in the bloodstream.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So you know where angiotensin 2 is, you know where aldosterone is, and where's ANP from? What produces ANP? Kennedy.
You still asking me?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah. What produces ANP?
I know it comes from aldosterone, and then it's the
No. Has nothing to do with aldosterone. ANP. Look at the first word. See the
HO.
first. What does that mean? Where does it come from?
Cardiac.
Thank you. Comes from the heart. Okay? Does that make sense now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we know where the 3 above A's come from. I will tell you again where antidiuretic hormone comes from, ADH. It comes from the posterior pituitary. It's actually made in the hypothalamus. It's stored in the posterior pituitary. And when your blood pressure drops because you've lost water, the pituitary releases anti-diuretic hormone. Anti means against, diuretic means to urinate. So when you're in shock, you don't want to lose more fluids, so you don't urinate. And anti-diuretic hormone is the major hormone that regulates water loss. So these 4 hormones control your blood pressure. The 3 above control salt loss or gain. Antidiuretic hormone controls water loss or gain. Okay? Sam, are you there or not? I guess you're not there. Okay. When you drink alcohol and you drink too much of it, you inhibit the function of ADH and you urinate too much. Alcohol makes you urinate too much. And then the next day you wake up with a hangover because you're dehydrated. And the treatment of dehydration and a hangover is to drink more water. Drink more water, okay? So we're now talking about water loss. So we're talking about ADH. We're talking about ADH. Okay? So this is very, very important. When you have increased blood osmolarity, which is also known as decreased blood volume, which decreases your blood pressure, it stimulates the osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus. It decreases the activity of the baroreceptors in your carotid artery and in your aortic sinus. All of these functions increase the synthesis of ADH, which is made in the hypothalamus and stored in the posterior pituitary. It stimulates the release of ADH from the posterior pituitary. ADH affects the collecting ducts of the kidneys to become more permeable to water. And when you're dehydrated, you need to increase water reabsorption. When you increase water reabsorption, this decreases the osmolarity, increases your blood volume, and increases your blood pressure. Those 4 hormones, all begin with A, are very important. Very important. Aldosterone. Aldosterone is made in the cortex of the adrenal gland. You have decreased blood pressure, decreased sodium in your body. It starts the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. You eventually get to aldosterone, which increases the sodium reabsorption in the collecting ducts, and your blood pressure rises because more sodium is reabsorbed. No angiotensin 2, no aldosterone, no ANP, and no ADH. Okay, here's ANP. Here, now, your blood volume is increased. When your blood volume is increased, you have stretching of your atria in your heart. When your atria stretch, they release ANP. ANP increases the excretion of sodium, otherwise known as natriuresis. And the water excretion into the urine increases due to osmosis. The increase in water excretion causes a decrease in your blood volume, and when your blood volume decreases, your blood pressure decreases. Again, ANP, one of the only hormones in your body that will decrease your blood pressure. Okay, and here's the review. Here's the review. It shows you exactly what we're talking about. Why do you drink fluids? Because the thirst center in your hypothalamus is stimulated because your blood osmolarity is too high. You need water. And then you have the mechanisms of ADH, aldosterone, and ANP, All right? Those are the three big ones with ADH. All right? So that is very, very important. When your extracellular fluid is equal to the intracellular fluids, this is known as isotonic. Isotonic. And your cells are normal. However, when you are dehydrated or overhydrated, your cells will either shrink or swell. You have learned this in AP1. If there is too little water in your body, your cells will shrink. If there is too much water in your body, your cells will swell. That is extremely important to understand. Okay? And when your cells swell, they eventually burst. So that's not good. That's not good. Neither is shrinkage. Neither is shrinkage. There is a rare disease called water intoxication. It is usually a psychiatric disease. People can't get enough water. I have seen this. Now, I practiced medicine in the ER for 40 years, and I think I've seen maybe 3 cases of water intoxication. I saw a young man who had mental problems, who drank 7 gallons of tea every day for a week. And he came into the emergency department in a coma. Let me ask you this question. When you drink a lot of water and you overdose yourself with water, what happens to sodium and chloride? Do they leave your body or do they stay in your body? Let me ask Preet to tell me the answer. Preet, you were there before.
I think Preet's laptop was glitching. He said that
Sorry,
he
I
was.
just got back. My
Oh,
computer.
you're back, Preet? You're back?
Yeah, I just got back. Did you ask a question?
Yeah, here's the question. You drink 7 gallons of tea every day for a week, and now you've overdosed yourself on water, and you are water intoxicated. You've lost gallons of water. The more you drink, obviously, the more you pee, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is your sodium high or is your sodium low?
Low?
Yeah, it's low because where water goes, salt goes. Okay. So if the normal value of sodium in your body is 140, this gentleman who I treated, his sodium was 102. Okay. Now, like I told you, I've treated 3 people who are water intoxicated, and all 3 of them had psychiatric problems. This is a deadly problem. This is a deadly problem. Out of those 3 people, I only saved 1. I only saved 1. The other 2 died. The other 2 died. So it's a deadly problem. It's a deadly problem, and it's basically due to psychiatric disease. So what does water intoxication actually do? Well, if you have excessive blood loss, if you're sweating, if you're vomiting, if you have diarrhea coupled with intake of plain water, your sodium will drop. That's known as hyponatremia. When your sodium drops, you have a decreased osmolarity in your extracellular fluid. You try and equalize between the extracellular fluid and the intracellular fluid. And when you have water intoxication, your cells will swell and it will cause you to have mental confusion, seizure, comas, and possibly die from it. Okay. We talked about water. We've talked about sodium. We talked about chloride. Let's talk about all the other electrolytes. Electrolytes in your body are either positively charged or negatively charged. If they're positively charged, they're called cations. You should have learned that in AP1 or in chemistry. If they are negatively charged, they're called anions. And there should be an equilibrium between the extracellular fluid and the intracellular fluid. And because there is water in between the fluid compartments, it's all controlled by osmosis, because that's what happens when water goes in and out of a cell. It's controlled by osmosis. These electrolytes maintain acid-base balance. They carry an electrical charge. And some of them are cofactors in enzyme production. In the blood plasma, in the interstitial fluid, and in the intracellular fluid, there are different concentrations of not only electrolytes, but also proteins. This chart is extremely important. I'm going to take at least 3 questions from this chart. I want you to look at yellow. Look at yellow, everything that's yellow. This is the intracellular fluid. One of the questions on exam number 3 is going to be, what is the most abundant cation in the intracellular fluid? Melanie, are you there? Dwayne.
I'm here.
Did you hear the question?
Yes. Would it be potassium?
Yes, potassium. So the most abundant cation in the intracellular fluid is potassium. Very well done. Very well done. Jessica.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. What is the most abundant anion in the intracellular fluid?
Is it K?
No, that's cation. That's a cation. I'm talking about anion. Anion is a negatively charged ion.
Then would it be HPO?
Yes, it's phosphate. Phosphate. Hydrogen phosphate. Yes, you are correct. You are correct. Okay? Everybody understand that? Okay, here's another question. Michael,
Yeah, Professor.
tell me the most abundant cation in the extracellular fluid.
Wait, can you say that again?
What is the most abundant cation in the extracellular fluid?
Would it be sodium?
Yeah, it's sodium. Okay? It is
Gotcha.
absolutely sodium. I want to make sure everyone understands that. Okay? I want to make sure everyone understands that. Let me ask Ramsha,
Yes.
what is the most abundant anion in the extracellular fluid?
What was the most abundant? What? Sorry, I couldn't.
Anion, a negatively charged ion in the extracellular fluid.
Is it chloride or?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
right.
All right.
Chloride. All right. So those are the kind of questions I'm going to ask you from this chart, and you won't see the chart, but this is what we're talking about. Okay. All right. Onward. There you go. Sodium, the most abundant cation in the extracellular fluid. Chloride, the major extracellular anion. Sodium is extremely important. It is impulse transmission, muscle contraction, fluid and electrolyte balance. Its level is controlled by the three A's: aldosterone, ADH, and ANP. And there's a fourth one, and the fourth one is angiotensin 2. Chloride, the major extracellular anion. You need chloride to form hydrochloric acid in your stomach. Very important. Electrolytes. Potassium. Potassium, the most abundant cation in this inside of the cell. It regulates pH. It's involved in impulse conduction. It's involved in muscle contraction. Bicarbonate, probably the most important ion in your body because it plays a role in acid-base buffering. The kidneys either reabsorb it or secrete it. Calcium, the most abundant mineral in your body. It's in bones and it's in teeth. You already know it is in blood coagulation. You should have known from AP1, it is a neurotransmitter release. It's in muscles and its excitability of not only nerves, but also muscles. You will find out in the endocrine system that is regulated by hormones. You don't have to know the hormones. The 4 hormones you have to know all begin with A, and we went over them already. Phosphate. Wherever calcium goes, phosphate goes. Magnesium. Magnesium is a minor electrolyte. It is intracellular and it activates many enzymes. It activates a very important pump, the sodium potassium pump in your heart. Okay? And here is a review. You don't have to know the numbers, that's not important. But a good review. Okay. Any questions about the electrolytes? All right. Let's talk about acid-base balance. This can be very, very hard if not explained correctly. And as a physician, I hope to explain this easy to you. I'm going to make it easy. It's not easy. It's extremely hard. Okay? There are medical students who never understand this, but I'm going to try and make it easy for you. If I lose you, stop me. The pH of arterial blood ranges between 7.35 and 7.45. To maintain a normal pH of your blood, you must depend on 3 important items. Number 1, a buffer system. The buffer systems act immediately. Once the buffer systems take effect, if more is needed, then the respiratory system is involved. And the respiratory system has only one function: to get rid of acid. And the acid that the respiratory system gets rid of is H2CO3, carbonic acid. If that doesn't work to maintain your normal pH, and usually it does not work, then you need your kidneys. Now, your kidneys have 2 functions. It can either excrete acid. The excretion of H plus means it excretes acid, or it can retain base. And when you say that the kidneys retain base, the base is bicarbonate. So the first thing that happens is the buffer systems immediately say, we have a problem. We have a dropping pH. We have a rising pH. Let's go back to homeostasis. If that doesn't work, your lungs try and get rid of carbon dioxide. If that doesn't work, and it usually does not work, the kidneys can either excrete more acid or retain base. So there are 3 buffer systems in your body, and these systems act immediately when there is a problem with pH. The most abundant system in your body to buffer is the protein buffer system. It's made out of amino acids. It is the most abundant buffer system in your body. Okay? Hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a protein. It is a combination of iron, which makes heme, and globin, which is a protein. Now, I want you to look at a very common formula. You're going to see this formula until you're sick of it. H2O plus CO2 equals carbonic acid. And the enzyme that catalyzes this was a question on exam number 2. And the answer is carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic acid is broken down into hydrogen and bicarbonate. This is acid, this is base. The enzyme that does this is called carbonic anhydrase. It works both ways. It works both ways. Okay? And hemoglobin will snatch up hydrogen. And when it snatches up hydrogen, you're adding an electrolyte to it. Therefore, hemoglobin is reduced. There it is, right there. The most important buffer system in your body is the carbonic acid bicarbonate system. And there it is again. H plus bicarbonate will equal carbonic acid. The most important buffer system in your body is this one. The most abundant is protein buffer system. Okay? Very, very important. There it is again. There it is again. The third buffer system is the phosphate buffer system. The phosphate buffer system works very similar to the carbonic acid bicarbonate system. Okay? It takes a strong base, it adds it to a weak acid, and it forms a weak base. It's just trying to get rid of a strong base, a strong base. And a hydroxide is a strong base. This is a minor system, and I'm not going to ask you any questions on a minor system. The two most important buffer systems in your body are the protein buffer system and the carbonic acid bicarbonate buffer system. We are now leaving the buffer systems. We are now depending on the lungs. If the buffer systems can't lower or raise your pH, we need to ask the lungs to help us out. The lungs can only get rid of acid. When you exhale carbon dioxide, you are exhaling acid, and that acid is carbonic acid. Exhaling carbon dioxide leads to less acid production, making your pH rise. If you retain carbon dioxide, it leads to more acid production and your pH drops. There's the formula again. CO2 plus H2O in the presence of carbonic anhydrase will form carbonic acid. Carbonic acid in the presence of carbonic anhydrase will form hydrogen and bicarbonate. That is the formula. If the lungs can't help you normalize your pH. And let me tell you right now, it never will. It never will. And I'll explain that in a minute. Your kidneys now need to step in. If you have too much acid in your body, your kidneys will excrete acid. And that acid is H+. That acid is H+. So your kidneys can excrete acid. If you have too much base, or if you have too much acid in your body, not only can the kidneys excrete acid, they can conserve base. So your kidneys will excrete hydrogen and conserve bicarbonate because that is a base. That is a base, okay? And we'll talk about the 4 mechanisms of acid-base balance. Again, the buffer systems act immediately. If they fail to regulate your pH, then we rely on the reduction of carbon dioxide, the elimination of acid from your lungs. If that doesn't work, and it never works, we will rely on your kidneys to secrete acid or reabsorb base. So there are definitions. The definition of acidosis is when your blood pH drops below 7.35. So a pH of 7.2 would be acidosis. If you have alkalosis, your blood pH is above 7.45. If your blood pH is 7.6, you are alkalotic. There are 4 mechanisms that we talk about when we talk about acid-base balance. They are respiratory acidosis, respiratory alkalosis, metabolic acidosis, and metabolic alkalosis. Let's talk about respiratory acidosis. Your blood pH drops due to excess retention of carbon dioxide, leading to excess of carbonic acid. You retain carbon dioxide. Linnea, are you there? Nicole, are you there?
Sorry, I'm here. I couldn't find the mic.
That's okay. Which one are you, Nicole or Linnea?
Nicole.
Oh, Nicole. Did you hear my explanation of respiratory acidosis?
No, my connection is like really bad, so it cuts in and out sometimes.
Okay, well, let me explain it to you, okay? Respiratory acidosis. Your pH drops below 7.35 because you have retained an excessive amount of carbon dioxide, leading to an excess of carbonic acid. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Tell me a disease in which you retain carbon dioxide, leading to an increase in carbonic acid.
I don't know if this is right, but isn't it with like COPD? I don't know if that's the right answer, but you keep.
That is the right answer.
Okay.
That's the right answer. COPD. because you're retaining more carbon dioxide. What if you have pneumonia? If you have pneumonia, you can't get oxygen and carbon dioxide to equilibrate in the area of pneumonia, and you're going to have respiratory acidosis because you're retaining more carbon dioxide. That makes sense?
Yes.
Good, good. So that's respiratory acidosis. That's respiratory acidosis. Nicole,
Yes.
how do I cure respiratory acidosis in a person with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease?
I'm not sure.
Let me ask you this question. You would agree with me that COPD has trouble breathing, correct?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to make you a doctor real quick.
Okay.
I just anointed you to be a doctor right now. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
You're in the emergency department and they bring in a 72-year-old man who has severe COPD and is breathing 4 times a minute and has severe respiratory acidosis. How do you treat this person?
Wouldn't they have to be put on like an oxygen tank or something like that?
How about putting them on a ventilator so
A
you can
ventilator,
breathe?
okay.
So you can breathe for them. Once you breathe for them, you're now blowing off the carbonic acid, and they will survive. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So a person with COPD or pneumonia will have respiratory acidosis because they are retaining carbon dioxide. And when you retain carbon dioxide, because of the formula, you retain carbonic acid. Okay? Everybody understand that? Good. Brianna. Joseph, I know you're there.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about respiratory alkalosis. Respiratory alkalosis means you're breathing too fast. And when you breathe too fast, you lose carbon dioxide. And when you lose carbon dioxide, you lose carbonic acid. You are now in respiratory alkalosis because your pH is high and your carbon dioxide level is low. I'm going to make you a doctor, Joseph. You're in the emergency department, and a 17-year-old girl who was at a funeral comes in with a respiratory rate of 70. And she has numbness and tingling of her lips, her hands, and her legs. And her blood gas shows that her pH is 7.8 and her carbon dioxide level is way below normal. How do you treat her respiratory alkalosis?
You give her CO2.
How do you do that? You are correct. How do you do that?
Do they have like gas pumps they put over the nose?
What about a paper bag?
Oh, okay. So when you're putting the paper bag over your nose, you keep on getting more and more CO2?
Exactly. Exactly. Now, I will tell you, as a seasoned doctor, I don't use paper bags. I put a gas mask over their face and I don't turn on the oxygen. And they can retain CO2. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. It's kind of hard to charge them $500 when you put a paper bag over their face. Okay? All right. That's respiratory acidosis from breathing too slowly, and respiratory alkalosis from breathing too quickly. One retains CO2, the other loses CO2. All right? Those are easy. Those are easy. The two hardest ones are metabolic acidosis and metabolic alkalosis. Okay? Let me go into metabolic alkalosis. Metabolic alkalosis means that you are losing acid. You are losing acid, and not a volatile acid. A volatile acid would be H2CO3, and that volatile acid is only lost by your lungs. But metabolic alkalosis means that you are actually losing a non-volatile acid, a non-volatile acid. And there are many, many acids in your body that are non-volatile, okay? Let me ask, Dennis.
Yeah.
Dennis, tell me where hydrochloric acid is in your body.
Isn't it in your blood?
No, not really. Where is hydrochloric acid made in your body? Do you know where it's made?
Remind me.
Stomach.
Oh.
Made in your stomach.
Stomach
made in your
acid?
stomach. Yeah, stomach acid is basically hydrochloric acid.
Did you know it can melt a spoon?
You can not melt more than a spoon. But
Yeah.
let me ask you this question. How can you lose stomach acid? How do you lose stomach acid?
If you're not getting the right eating the right stuff.
No. How can you lose it? Like right now, how can you lose stomach acid?
Like an injury?
Yeah, but I'm not going to injure you. So how can you lose stomach acid right now? How can you lose it?
Remind me.
I'll have Melissa. Melissa, you there? Anthony, are you there?
I'm here, Professor.
Tell Dennis how she can lose stomach acid.
Vomiting.
Yeah, vomiting. Dennis, you understand that?
Yeah, I do. That's true.
Yeah, it is true. So when you lose acid, the number one cause of metabolic alkalosis is vomiting. And if you have surgery and you're not able to eat, and we put a tube into your stomach to drain your stomach, you can get metabolic alkalosis. So the number one cause of metabolic alkalosis is vomiting, okay? So that's important to understand.
That's going to be a test question.
Oh yeah, I guarantee it. I guarantee it. All right? Now, let's go to the hardest one. The hardest one is metabolic acidosis. Metabolic acidosis occurs when there's too much non-volatile acids in your blood, and is usually caused by a number of diseases that goes untreated or poorly treated. Maddie, I'm going to pick on you. Maddie, are you there? Maybe you're not. Ariana, are you there? Spencer, are you there?
Yes.
Spencer, name me, besides hydrochloric acid, an acid in your body that is non-volatile. Non-volatile means it can't be excreted in the air. Okay? Let me make it easier for you. You over-exercise and your muscle breaks down and forms this acid. Do you know what acid? Yeah, lactic acid. So lactic acidosis is a common cause of metabolic acidosis. For people that have diabetes, diabetes is a disease that lacks insulin. And when you lack insulin, your body will make glucose from fat. And when your body makes glucose from fat, it has byproducts. It makes glucose, but you also make fatty acids. And those fatty acids are known as keto acids. And you'll have ketones in your urine. So if you starve to death, or if you have uncontrolled diabetes, you will develop metabolic acidosis. Metabolic acidosis. One of the treatments of metabolic acidosis is to give you insulin, because the most common cause of metabolic acidosis is uncontrolled diabetes. Okay? So now we've talked about the four: respiratory acidosis, respiratory alkalosis, metabolic acidosis, and metabolic alkalosis. All right? And here they are. Here they are.
I have a quick question.
Go.
And I'm sorry, pre-text me that my computer was not working. It was just buffering.
That's all right. Go ahead.
What's the difference between metabolic acidosis and then like being in DKA, like diabetic ketoacidosis?
Same thing. It's the same thing.
Okay.
It's another word. It's another word for it. Another word for it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
DKA is the specific acidosis of diabetics. Okay? It's the non-volatile keto acids that accumulate. All right? That's important. Okay. Oh, don't worry about as you get older, and that's not important. Don't worry, you're not old yet. I'm old, you're not old. Not important. All right. Let's stop recording.